Well, I've said it before. I'm no jazz guitarist by any stretch. But I love the music, and there are several well-known jazz players who've had an impact on my blues playing, even if it's not obvious. Now, among my many favorites is George Benson, and I've always been most interested in his killer guitar playing on albums from the 60s like The New Boss Guitar of George Benson and the George Benson Cookbook. Now, I've long admired his signature hollow body guitar, the Ibanez GB10, which was the company's first artist model, and I've long been curious if it might work for blues. Now, the thing is, the Japan-made model is quite expensive, and I've never even seen one in a shop, so I couldn't commit to shelling out that kind of money with no idea how it would work out. Well, then in 2016, Ibanez introduced the less expensive GB10SE, and I was intrigued. But I wasn't sure how well an inexpensive version would represent the original. Well, after hearing many good things, I'm finally getting around to trying one. Well, for decades, Ibanez has produced a less expensive version of their high-end Japanese models by outsourcing production to other countries. Now, in my recent experience, well, these lower-cost versions are usually great quality and not too far off from the high-priced originals, and components like the pickups usually even have the exact same model designation. From what I've been able to learn, that generally means those built outside of Japan are built to the same specifications, but materials can be somewhat different, depending on local availability. And I'd expect the same thing here. The pickups on both GB10 models are just called GB Specials, and are described simply as passive Alnico. Well, by most accounts, this Indonesian-made GB10 is very close to the high-end Japanese model. And if you read the published specs, side by side, they're nearly identical. In fact, I could only find one listed difference. The Japan-made model says Prestige fret-end treatment, and the SE says Art Star fret-end treatment. I'm not sure what the difference is, but the fret ends on this one are uniformly rounded and beautifully done. All the other specs are the same, at least on paper. It's got the same spruce top with maple back and sides. Both have a three-piece maple neck with a bound ebony fretboard and the acrylic and abalone inlays. Also the same ebony bridge, the same string spacing, 43mm nut width, and 12-inch radius. Even the same half-brass, half-bone nut. Now the scale length is 24.7 inches. Now, of course, I'm not suggesting the models are equivalent. After all, this version costs $1,500, and the Prestige version costs $3,600. But that aside, I'm going to evaluate this guitar on its own merits. So let's check this out. Now understand, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this as a guitar for modern blues rock, but I'm interested to see how it does for jazz-inflected outside blues. In keeping with my plan, I went ahead and strung it with round-wound 11s, a little heavier than my usual 10 through 46 set. Now these will be a bit brighter than the flat wounds it comes with. However, I did use a wound G string, which will further influence my approach to playing this model. Now these floating wooden bridges won't allow correct intonation with an unwound third. Well, these pickups sound pretty decent. I should point out they're fully floating, with the neck pickup attached to the neck in the usual jazz archtop manner. and the bridge pickup attached to the pickguard, so only the controls are screwed to the top, which certainly contributes to its traditional jazz archtop sound. So let's hear it in a mix. Well, I have to say, I enjoyed the GB10SE. Now, Benson's goal with this design was to get the sound and vibe of a classic jazz box without the size and bulk and the tendency to feed back so quickly. It's a unique, satisfying, and very cool instrument. And the quality of this much lower cost version is really fine. Now I'm kind of curious about the expensive Japan-built version. But in any case, this is a nice instrument in its own right. And playing it with these strings, I'm sure it would sound a bit rounder with flat wounds, and I'd like to give it another try with a fresh set. I put extra light flat wounds on my 1951 Epiphone, and they work very well on that guitar. So it'd be fun to try them on this one. Who knows? Maybe that'll be the subject of a follow-up video, if there's enough interest in this one. So for now, I hope you've enjoyed my take on this cool Ibanez. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you again very soon.